It began on a cold evening that most people hurried through without looking back, the kind of night when the city felt indifferent and rushed, wrapped in its own worries. Near a closed storefront, under flickering streetlight reflections on wet pavement, stood a homeless teenage girl whom almost no one noticed. She was thin, exhausted, and clearly worn down by life on the streets, yet there was something quietly steady in her posture. In her hands was a cardboard sign, not asking for spare change, but asking for help in words that suggested desperation mixed with dignity. This small detail alone made her different from the countless scenes people were used to ignoring every day. Witnesses later recalled that most pedestrians passed by without slowing down, their eyes fixed forward, unwilling to engage. The city had taught them that stopping meant trouble, responsibility, or discomfort. But among the crowd was a young man who was struggling in his own way, though his hardships were invisible. He was not homeless, but he was broke, directionless, and emotionally drained after a series of failures that had left him questioning his worth. According to people familiar with the story, he hesitated only for a moment before stopping in front of the girl, unsure of what he could possibly offer when he himself felt empty. Their conversation did not begin with dramatic words or promises. It started simply, awkwardly, with questions that felt almost out of place in such a harsh setting. He asked her name. She answered. She asked why he looked so tired. He laughed bitterly and told her the truth. In that brief exchange, something unexpected happened. Instead of pity or distance, there was recognition. Two people, both overlooked by society in different ways, found themselves speaking honestly without fear of judgment. Sources say that the girl listened intently, as if his problems mattered just as much as her own, a reaction he had not experienced in a long time. As the minutes passed, the cold seemed less biting. The girl spoke about her life on the streets, not with self-pity, but with a calm acceptance that surprised him. She talked about loss, about broken systems, and about how easily people disappear when they no longer fit into the picture of success. Yet even in her words, there was no bitterness. Instead, there was a quiet belief that things could change, even if she did not know how or when. That belief, fragile but persistent, struck him deeply. Those close to the situation say that when he finally walked away that night, he did not feel like he had helped a homeless girl. He felt like something inside him had been stirred awake. He carried with him the weight of her words and the unexpected warmth of being seen when he had felt invisible himself. Neither of them could have known it then, but that ordinary, easily forgettable evening would later be remembered as the moment everything began to shift, the first step in a story that would challenge how people define wealth, success, and the true value of human connection. After that first encounter, their connection did not fade as most brief street conversations do. Instead, it quietly continued, growing through short meetings and longer talks whenever their paths crossed again. What stood out, according to those familiar with the situation, was not romance in the traditional sense, but a steady emotional bond built on honesty and trust. The girl, despite living without stability, listened to him with a level of focus and sincerity that made him feel valued. She remembered details about his struggles, his failed attempts at building a better life, and the frustration he carried from feeling stuck. For him, this was unfamiliar. Most people he knew were quick to judge results, not effort. Over time, she began to encourage him in small but meaningful ways. She asked him why he had stopped believing in himself, why he had allowed past failures to define his future. Her questions were not rehearsed or motivational slogans, they were raw and direct, shaped by someone who had lost almost everything yet still held on to hope. Observers later noted the irony that someone society viewed as powerless was giving strength to a man who still had options but lacked confidence. Her belief in him felt genuine, not conditional on success or status, and that made it difficult for him to dismiss. As days turned into weeks, her words started to influence his behavior. He began revisiting ideas he had abandoned, updating old applications, and reaching out to contacts he had been too ashamed to approach again. Each small step was followed by doubt, but whenever he felt close to quitting, he remembered her calm certainty that progress did not require perfection. According to accounts shared later, she often reminded him that surviving the streets required resilience, and that resilience, once learned, could be applied anywhere. This perspective reshaped how he viewed his own setbacks. What made the bond deeper was that the support was mutual. While he worked toward rebuilding his life, he helped her in practical ways when he could, offering food, guidance, and consistency. Yet she never framed his help as charity. She insisted on dignity, on being treated as an equal rather than a problem to be solved. This balance prevented their relationship from becoming one-sided and reinforced the sense that they were moving forward together, even if their circumstances were vastly different. People close to the story say the most powerful change during this period was internal. The man began to see value in persistence rather than quick success, and he credited this shift to her influence. Her unwavering belief acted as a stabilizing force during moments when external results were slow or disappointing. In a world obsessed with visible progress, her quiet encouragement filled the gap that numbers and titles could not. This phase, largely unseen by others, laid the emotional foundation for everything that followed, proving that transformation often begins long before success becomes visible. The turning point did not arrive with a sudden stroke of luck or a dramatic announcement, but through steady progress that eventually became impossible to ignore. The efforts he had restarted, fueled by persistence rather than desperation, began to show results. Opportunities that once seemed closed slowly reopened, and small wins accumulated into meaningful momentum. According to later interviews, he approached each breakthrough with a mindset shaped during his time with the homeless girl, focusing less on fear of failure and more on consistent action. This shift, subtle at first, proved to be decisive. As his financial situation improved, so did his sense of responsibility. He did not treat success as a personal escape, but as a tool. The first major change he made was ensuring that the girl was no longer living on the streets. With careful planning, he helped secure safe housing, access to education, and professional support, emphasizing stability over quick fixes. Sources close to them say this transition was handled with sensitivity, as he remained mindful of her dignity and independence. Rather than positioning himself as a savior, he framed the progress as a shared victory built on mutual belief. Public attention came later, largely driven by social media discussions and interviews where he openly credited his transformation to her influence. His story stood out because it challenged familiar narratives of success. Instead of highlighting wealth as the starting point, he spoke about emotional support, accountability, and belief as the true catalysts. This honesty resonated widely, prompting conversations about the invisible forces behind achievement. Viewers and readers were drawn to the idea that motivation could come from the most unexpected places, and that value was not tied to status or circumstance. The girl's life continued to change alongside his. With stability came the opportunity to heal, learn, and imagine a future beyond survival. She pursued education and developed skills that allowed her to regain control over her life. Those who followed her progress noted a quiet confidence emerging, replacing the guarded resilience she once relied on. Her journey became a symbol of what happens when compassion is paired with consistency, rather than fleeting attention. Today, the man is widely recognized as financially successful, but he often emphasizes that wealth was not the most important outcome. In public statements, he describes richness as the ability to uplift others without losing oneself. He remains clear that his achievements are inseparable from the support he received when he had little to offer in return. The story, now shared across platforms, continues to spark reflection and debate, reminding audiences that genuine connection can alter life's trajectory in ways money alone never could. It stands as a modern parable, urging people to reconsider where real wealth begins and how easily it can be overlooked.